Daddy, that girl is hungry. Can we buy her a snack? What the billionaire father does is unbelievable. Emma held the paper so carefully that her little hands trembled slightly. The drawing had 3 figures, a tall one, a small one, and a giant sun in the top right corner. She had used every colored pencil she could find in the box. Daddy! Her voice echoed through the empty house. Mark was in the living room typing furiously on his laptop. The phone rang non-stop, and he answered each call as if it were the most important one of his life. Emma came down the stairs slowly, holding the drawing against her chest. Her small bare feet made a soft pattering sound on the hardwood floor. Daddy, look what I made. Mark looked up for a second. His smile appeared quickly, automatically. It's beautiful, sweetheart. He didn't even really look at the paper. Daddy will always have time for you. The phone rang again. Mark answered it before Emma could even show him the details of her drawing. Yes, Mark speaking. No, it can't wait until Monday. Emma just stood there, holding the drawing. The sun she had drawn seemed less bright now. She waited. Mark gestured as he talked, completely absorbed in the conversation. 5 minutes passed. 10. Emma sighed and placed the drawing on the coffee table next to the laptop. Mark didn't even notice. Emma, get your jacket. We're going out for dinner. She ran to get her pink jacket with the little ears on the hood. It was her favorite. Maybe at the restaurant, Daddy would pay attention to her. In the car, Mark connected his phone to the speaker. More calls, more important conversations. Emma looked out the window, counting the red cars that passed. She had found 7 by the time they reached downtown. The restaurant was nice. It had little lights hanging from the ceiling and tables with checkered tablecloths. Emma liked coming here because they served star-shaped fries. Table for 2, please, Mark said to the waitress, still fiddling with his phone. They sat near the window. Emma climbed onto the chair and rested her chin on the table, watching the movement on the street. It was early evening, and people were walking hurriedly on the sidewalks. What do you want to eat, princess? Mark asked, but his eyes were glued to his phone screen. Star-shaped fries and apple juice. Perfect. Mark's phone started to ring. He answered it immediately. Sorry, Emma, it's work. Daddy has to take this. Emma nodded. She always nodded. She knew this routine by heart. Mark stood up and went outside the restaurant, gesturing as he talked. Emma could see him through the glass window, pacing back and forth. That's when she saw her. Across the street, leaning against the wall of an old building, was a little girl. She looked to be about Emma's age, maybe a little younger. She was sitting on the ground, hugging her knees, and her clothes looked dirty and torn. Emma pressed her face against the glass. The girl was looking at the people passing by, but no one stopped. No one even looked at her. The waitress brought the fries and the juice. Emma said thank you, but she couldn't stop looking at the girl across the street. She looked cold and hungry. Mark came back to the table, still on the phone. Yes, I understand the urgency. No, don't worry, I'll handle it tonight. He sat down and gestured for Emma to start eating. She picked up a fry but couldn't swallow it. The girl outside was still there, all alone. Daddy, Emma said, pulling on his shirt sleeve. Mark held up a finger, asking her to wait. He kept talking on the phone about numbers, deadlines, and meetings. Emma looked at the girl again. This time, she noticed the girl was looking back, right at the restaurant, right at Emma. They stared at each other for a moment. The girl didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. There was something in her eyes that Emma recognized. Loneliness. The same loneliness she felt when her dad answered the phone for the 10th time that day. Daddy! Emma tried again, this time louder. Mark covered the phone with his hand and whispered irritably, Emma, not now. Daddy's working. He went back to his call, turning his back to her. Emma took a deep breath and pointed to the window. Daddy, that girl is hungry. Can we buy her a snack? Mark didn't even look where she was pointing. He waved his hand dismissively, as if shooing away a fly. Okay, we'll see about it later. But his eyes remained glued to his phone. Emma realized he hadn't even really heard what she said. The phone rang again. Mark answered immediately, without even apologizing this time. Emma sat there, looking at the girl across the street. She seemed to be shivering from the cold. Emma looked at her own plate full of warm fries and felt a sick feeling in her stomach. Mark had his back to her, talking excitedly about some project. Emma looked around the restaurant. The waitress was busy with other customers. No one was paying attention to her. Slowly, Emma slid off her chair. She looked at her dad one more time. He was still talking, gesturing, completely oblivious to everything around him. Emma walked to the restaurant door. She knew she wasn't supposed to go out alone, but something inside her told her she had to do this. The girl outside looked like she needed help. The cold night air hit her face as she opened the door. Emma looked both ways before crossing the street, just like her daddy had taught her. Her heart was beating fast, partly from nervousness, partly from excitement. The girl was still in the same spot, but now she was looking at Emma with curiosity. "Hi," Emma said, stopping a few feet away. The girl didn't answer right away. She looked Emma up and down, noticing the new jacket and clean shoes. "Hi," she finally replied. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Emma moved closer and sat on the ground next to the girl. "Oh, what's your name?" "Chloe." "I'm Emma. I'm 5. How about you?" "5 too, I think." "You think?" "Yeah. I don't really remember my birthday." Emma was quiet for a moment. She couldn't imagine not remembering her own birthday. Hers always had cake, presents, and a party, even if it was a small one. "Where do you live, Chloe?" Chloe pointed to a dark alley between 2 buildings. "Over there." "With who?" "Alone." Emma felt a strange ache in her chest. How could someone her age live alone? "You don't have a mommy or a daddy?" "I don't know where they are. It's been a long time since I saw them." Emma looked at Chloe more closely. Her clothes were really dirty, and she looked like she hadn't had a bath in days, but her eyes were pretty, big and dark. "Are you hungry?" Chloe hesitated before answering. "Very. When was the last time you ate?" "Yesterday morning. A lady gave me a piece of bread." Emma was shocked. She couldn't imagine going a whole day without eating. "Do you stay here every night?" "Sometimes when it's not raining." "And when it is raining?" "I hide under the awnings." Emma looked up at the sky. It was cloudy, and it looked like it might rain at any moment. "Aren't you scared?" "I am, but there's nowhere else to go." Emma took Chloe's hand. It was ice cold. "I saw you from the restaurant. You looked sad. I watch people eating in there. It looks good." "It is good. They make star-shaped fries." Chloe smiled for the first time. It was a small but genuine smile. "Real stars?" "No, just the shape. But it's really cool." The two sat quietly for a moment, watching people pass by on the sidewalk. Emma noticed that everyone avoided looking at Chloe as if she were invisible. "Why don't people stop to talk to you?" Chloe shrugged. "I think I scare them because of my dirty clothes." "You don't scare me." "You're different." Emma smiled. She liked being called different. "Want to be my friend? Do you really want to?" "Of course." "I've never had a friend who lives on the street." "And I've never had a friend who lives in a house." They laughed together. It was the first time Emma saw Chloe truly happy. "What's it like, living in a house?" Chloe asked. "It's nice. There's a warm bed, a bathroom, a kitchen, but sometimes it's kind of lonely." "Lonely? Why?" "My daddy works a lot. He's always on the phone." "At least you have a daddy." Emma nodded. She had never thought about it that way. "That's true. But he never has time for me. I'd give anything to have someone who didn't have time for me. At least it would be someone." Emma looked at Chloe with admiration. She was very smart for a 5-year-old. They continued talking about their lives. Chloe told her how she found food in restaurant trash cans, how she protected herself from the rain, and how she dreamed of having a home. Emma told her about school, her toys, and how she wished her dad would pay attention to her. "Emma!" Both girls turned. Mark was standing at the restaurant door, a look of panic on his face. He had noticed she was gone. "Emma, where are you?" Emma waved to him from across the street. Mark saw her and ran towards them, crossing the street without even looking for cars. "Emma, what are you doing here? You scared me." He arrived, out of breath, and knelt in front of the 2 girls. It was only then that he got a good look at Chloe. "Daddy, this is Chloe. Remember I told you about her?" Mark looked at Chloe, who had shrunk back behind Emma. The girl was truly in terrible condition. "Hi, Chloe," he said softly. "Hi," she replied quietly. "Emma, you can't leave the restaurant without telling me. I was worried." "Sorry, Daddy. But Chloe was here all alone, and I wanted to be friends with her." Mark looked at Chloe again. She was trembling, and not just from the cold. "She's hungry," Emma said. "Can we buy her a snack?" Mark hesitated. He looked around, noticing that a few people were stopping to watch the scene. "Please, Daddy?" "She hasn't eaten since yesterday." Mark felt something tighten in his chest. He looked at Emma's pleading eyes, then at Chloe, who was avoiding looking directly at him. "All right," he said finally. "Let's go back to the restaurant." Emma smiled and helped Chloe get up. "Come on, Chloe. You're going to love the star-shaped fries." The three of them crossed the street together. Mark held Emma's hand and Emma held Chloe's hand. Back at the restaurant, Mark asked for a bigger table. The waitress looked at Chloe with suspicion, but Mark ignored her. "Oh, could you bring another plate of fries and a juice, please?" "Of course, sir." Chloe sat in the chair next to Emma, still wary. She looked around the restaurant as if it were a magical place. "It's really pretty in here," she whispered to Emma. "I come here all the time with my daddy." The food arrived, and Chloe ate slowly, as if she wanted to make it last forever. Emma told stories about school while they ate, and Chloe listened to everything attentively. Mark watched the two girls talk. They were the same age, but lived in completely different worlds, and yet they seemed to understand each other perfectly. His phone rang. Mark looked at the screen, then at Emma and Chloe. For the first time in years, he declined the call. "Daddy, aren't you going to answer?" Emma asked, surprised. "Not right now," Emma smiled. It was the first time her dad had chosen to stay with her, instead of answering the phone. "Thank you for the food," Chloe said when she finished eating. "You're welcome," Mark replied. He looked at his watch. It was past 8 o'clock. Mark's phone rang again. This time he answered, but he kept the conversation short. "Yes, no, I can't right now. I'll call back tomorrow morning." He hung up and looked at the girls. "Emma, we need to go. Daddy has to stop by the office." Emma made a face like she didn't want to leave. "What about Chloe?" Mark looked at Chloe, who had lowered her head. He didn't know what to say. "Chloe is going back to where she lives." "But she lives on the street." Mark was speechless for a moment. Emma was right. It made no sense to leave a 5-year-old child on the street. But his phone rang again, and this time he answered, "Yes, Mark speaking. I see." "No, I'll take care of it tomorrow morning." While Mark was on the phone, Emma said goodbye to Chloe. "Bye, Chloe. It was really nice to meet you." "Bye, Emma. Thanks for coming to talk to me." Mark finished the call and stood up. "Let's go, Emma. I'm late." Emma got up slowly and followed her dad to the door. She turned one last time to wave at Chloe, who was still sitting at the table, alone again. In the car, Emma was quiet. Mark drove while talking on speakerphone with someone about work. Emma looked out the window and saw Chloe leaving the restaurant. The girl walked slowly to the dark alley and disappeared into the shadows. "Daddy," Emma said quietly. Mark didn't hear her. He was too busy discussing the New York project. Emma sighed and leaned her head against the window. She had promised Chloe they would be friends, but she didn't know when she would see her again. And as Mark talked about deadlines and meetings, Emma wondered how Chloe would spend the night, alone and cold, in that dark alley. Mark's phone rang again. He answered immediately, as always. "Let's go, I'm late," he muttered, speeding up the car. But for the first time, Emma realized that her daddy was always late for everything, except for being with her. Emma was lying on her bedroom rug, surrounded by colored pencils scattered on the floor. The lamplight made small shadows dance on the wall as she drew carefully. This time it was different. The drawing didn't just have her and her daddy. It had 3 girls, one with straight hair like hers, another with darker, curly hair, and a third figure she wasn't quite sure who it was. Maybe it was herself, but somewhere else. She used the yellow pencil to make a very large sun in the corner of the page. Chloe had said she'd never seen the sun up close because she always slept in dark places. Emma wanted to draw a sun so bright that Chloe could feel its warmth just by looking at it. "Done," she whispered to herself. adding the final touch of pink to the three girls' cheeks. Emma stood up and held the drawing with both hands. She had put more effort into it than ever before. The three girls were holding hands, and underneath she had written in crooked letters, "Friends forever." She went down the stairs slowly, careful not to wrinkle the paper. The house was silent, except for the sound of her dad typing on the computer. Mark was in the living room, as always. The laptop open on the coffee table, papers scattered around, and the phone glued to his ear. The blue light from the screen illuminated his focused face. "No, that's not going to work," he was saying into the phone. "We need a more aggressive approach." "Yes, I understand the values are high, but—" Emma stopped at the entrance to the living room and waited. Maybe he would finish the call soon. 5 minutes passed. Mark kept talking, now gesturing with his free hand as he explained some complex strategy. Emma cleared her throat softly. Mark glanced at her quickly and motioned with his hand, asking her to wait. He returned his attention to the call. "As I was saying, the timeline needs to be adjusted." Emma stood there holding the drawing. She looked at the three girls she had drawn and wondered if Chloe was thinking of her too. 10 more minutes passed. Mark hung up the phone but immediately opened a spreadsheet on the computer and started typing numbers. "Daddy?" Emma said softly. He replied without taking his eyes off the screen. "I made a new drawing." "That's nice, princess." Mark typed a few more numbers and picked up the phone again. He started to dial. "Daddy, do you want to see it?" "I'll be right back, Emma. Daddy needs to make an important call." The phone started ringing. Mark waited for someone to answer, drumming his fingers on the table. Emma took a step forward and held the drawing out to him. "Look, Daddy, I drew 3 girls, and one of them is Chloe." Mark answered the phone and immediately turned his back to Emma. "Hi, it's Mark. About the proposal we discussed earlier." Emma kept holding the drawing in the air, waiting. Mark paced back and forth across the room, completely absorbed in the conversation. "No, it can't be Friday. It has to be sooner. I understand, but you don't grasp the urgency." Emma slowly lowered her arm. The drawing slipped a little between her fingers. She tried one more time. "Daddy," she said a little louder. Mark turned and looked at her with irritation, covering the phone with his hand. "Not now, Emma." His voice was firm, almost harsh. Emma felt as if she had been slapped. Mark went back to his call, turning his back on her again. "Sorry, where was I? Yes, about the deadlines." Emma stood there for another moment, looking at the drawing in her hands. The 3 smiling girls seemed to be mocking her now. She turned slowly and went up the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she reached her room, she placed the drawing on the nightstand beside her bed and lay down. Downstairs, Mark continued talking on the phone. His voice echoed through the empty house, mixed with the sound of the computer keys. Emma pulled the blanket up to her neck and looked at the ceiling. Small glow-in-the-dark stars formed constellations she had memorized. There was the Big Dipper, Orion, and one she called the Lost Girl. She thought of Chloe, probably lying somewhere cold and dark. At least Chloe didn't have anyone to ignore her. Emma had a daddy, but sometimes she felt lonelier than if she had no one at all. Mark's phone rang again downstairs. Emma heard him answer immediately. "Mark speaking." "No, I haven't finished analyzing the data yet." Emma closed her eyes and tried to imagine herself somewhere else. Maybe in a park playing with Chloe. Or in a house where daddies paid attention to their daughters. Drawings. She took the drawing from the nightstand and held it against her chest. The 3 girls holding hands were the only family she really had right now. "I'll show it to Chloe tomorrow," she whispered to herself. But Chloe was far away and Emma didn't know when she would see her again. Maybe never. Mark kept talking downstairs. His voice was the only thing that broke the silence of the house. Emma heard fragments of the conversation. Profit, investment, timeline, words that meant nothing to her. She turned on her side and faced the window. The moon was almost full, shining softly through the curtains. Emma wondered if Chloe could see the same moon from where she was. "Good night, Chloe," she whispered to the window. The drawing slipped from her hands and fell to the floor beside the bed. Emma didn't bother to pick it up. She knew that when she woke up in the morning, her daddy would have already left for work, and the drawing would still be there, on the floor, invisible as always. Mark hung up the phone downstairs, but Emma already knew that in less than 5 minutes it would be ringing again. It was always like this. She pulled the covers over her head, creating a small dark cave where only she existed. Inside, in the muffled silence, Emma could pretend she had someone who cared about her drawings. Mark's phone rang again. Emma wasn't even surprised. "Yes, Mark speaking." His voice blended with the sound of the wind outside, and Emma let it carry her away, to a place where 5-year-old girls didn't have to compete with phones for attention. She fell asleep holding the blanket, dreaming of 3 girls playing in a sunny park, where no one had a phone and all the drawings were seen and admired. Downstairs, Mark worked late into the night without even going up to say goodnight to his daughter. The drawing remained on Emma's bedroom floor, waiting for someone who never came. The next morning, when Emma woke up, Mark had already left for the office. The drawing was still on the floor, exactly where it had fallen. She picked it up and put it in her drawer, along with all the other drawings her daddy never saw. And so another day began in the silent house, where promises of time and attention were made, but never kept. Emma woke up to the sound of the front door closing. Mark had already left for the office, as he always did before she woke up. She went downstairs in her pajamas and found a note stuck to the fridge. "Princess, Sarah will be with you today. Daddy will be back tonight. Love you." Sarah was the babysitter who looked after Emma when Mark had to work on the weekends. She was young, had curly hair, and always brought funny stories to tell. The doorbell rang at 9 in the morning on the dot. "Good morning, beautiful," Sarah said, coming in with a colorful backpack. "What's with the long face? Sleep poorly?" Emma shrugged and sat at the kitchen table. Sarah made star-shaped pancakes, just like the fries from the restaurant. "Sarah," Emma said as she ate, "do you know downtown well?" "Sure. Why?" "There's a girl there. Her name is Chloe." "She doesn't have a home." Sarah stopped washing the dishes and turned to Emma. "What do you mean she doesn't have a home? She lives on the street. I met her yesterday at the restaurant with my daddy." Sarah dried her hands and sat down next to Emma. "And what do you want to do about it?" "I wanted to see if she's okay. Can we take some food to her?" Sarah thought for a moment. She looked at Emma, whose eyes were full of hope. "Does your dad know you want to do this?" "He was busy yesterday, but I think he would let me." Sarah sighed. She had known Mark for 2 years and knew how distracted he was with Emma's emotional needs. "Okay, but let's do this right. I'll pack a lunch and we'll take a quick trip downtown." Emma jumped out of her chair and hugged Sarah. "Thank you. Chloe is going to be so happy." They spent the morning making sandwiches, cutting up fruit and putting everything in a small basket. Emma insisted on also bringing a bottle of juice and some cookies she found in the cupboard. "She must be very hungry," Emma said, arranging everything carefully. They took the bus downtown. Emma stayed glued to the window, looking for Chloe on every corner. When they got off near the restaurant where they had met, Emma ran ahead. "Chloe? Chloe, are you there?" At first, they didn't see anyone. Emma started to worry. Had Chloe left? "Hey, let's check that alley you mentioned," Sarah suggested. They walked to the dark alley between the buildings. At the far end, sitting in a corner, was Chloe. She was awake, but she looked tired. "Chloe!" Emma shouted, running towards her. Chloe looked up, surprised. When she saw Emma, her eyes lit up. "Emma, you came back." "I told you I'd come back." "This is Sarah. She takes care of me." Sarah approached slowly. Chloe looked even more fragile than Emma had described. "Hi, Chloe. Emma can't stop talking about you." Chloe smiled shyly. "We brought lunch," Emma said, opening the basket. "Sandwiches, fruit, cookies, and juice." Chloe's eyes widened. She couldn't believe there was so much food there just for her. "There's all this for me?" "Of course. Eat as much as you want." They sat on the alley floor, and Chloe ate slowly, savoring every bite. Emma talked about her house, her toys, and her school. Chloe talked about the places she slept, the friendly dogs she met, and how she protected herself from the rain. "How do you want to play in the park?" Sarah asked after Chloe finished eating. "Can I really?" "Of course." They walked to the nearest park. Emma taught Chloe how to play on the swings, the slide, and the seesaw. Chloe laughed so much, a laugh Emma had never heard before. It was a loud, genuine laugh that echoed throughout the whole park. "I've never played in a real park before," Chloe confessed as she swung. "She's never." "No, I always watched from a distance, but I never went in." Emma was quiet for a moment. She came to the park every week and had never thought it could be something special. They played for hours. Sarah bought ice cream for both of them and they sat on the grass to eat. Chloe had completely relaxed and talked non-stop about everything she was seeing. "That dog looks just like the one I always see near the bakery," she said, pointing to a golden retriever, "but this one looks happier." "Why?" "It has someone taking care of it." Emma looked at the dog's owner and who was playing fetch. It was true. The dog was beaming with happiness. "Chloe," Emma said slowly, "would you want someone to take care of you?" "Everyone does, right? My daddy could take care of you too." Chloe stopped licking her ice cream. "What do you mean?" "Our house is big. There's a guest room that nobody uses. You could stay there." "Would your daddy let me?" Emma thought for a moment. She wasn't sure, but she wanted to believe he would. "I'll ask him." Sarah watched the conversation in silence. She knew Mark well enough to know the situation would be complicated. The day flew by. As evening began to fall, Sarah said they needed to head home. "My daddy will be home soon," Emma explained to Chloe. "But I'll come back tomorrow, okay? Promise?" "I promise." They hugged each other tightly before saying goodbye. Chloe went back to the dark alley, and Emma and Sarah took the bus back. "Sarah," Emma said during the ride, "do you think my daddy would let Chloe stay at our house?" Sarah chose her words carefully. "Your dad is a good person, Emma. But these things are complicated for grown-ups. Why? Because there are laws, paperwork, a lot of boring stuff." Emma was quiet for the rest of the trip, thinking. When they got home, Mark hadn't returned yet. Emma had dinner, took a bath, and waited in the living room. Sarah stayed with her until Mark arrived, around 9 at night. "Hi, princesses. How was your day?" "Hi, Daddy, it was great." Sarah briefly told him about the trip to the park, but didn't mention Chloe. She thought it was best to let Emma tell that part. After Sarah left, Mark sat on the couch next to Emma. "So, what did you two do that was so special?" Emma took a deep breath. This was it. "Daddy, do you remember Chloe?" Mark frowned. "The girl from the restaurant?" "That's her. I went to see her today." "What do you mean you went to see her?" "Sarah took me. We brought her lunch, and we played in the park." Mark grew a little tense. "Emma, I've told you not to go talking to just anyone." "But she's not just anyone. She's my friend." Mark sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Emma, I know you want to help, but—" "Daddy," Emma interrupted him, "she sleeps on the floor." Mark stopped talking. "Every day, she sleeps on the floor of a dark alley, all alone. She has no one. Our house is big. She could stay with us, just until she has a home of her own." Mark was silent. Emma continued, "She's never played in a park, Daddy. Never. And when she laughed today, it was the happiest sound I've ever heard." Mark looked at Emma. For the first time in a long time, he really saw her. He saw the compassion in her eyes, the determination in her voice, the maturity she was developing. "Emma, please, Daddy, just until she has a real family." Mark remained silent for a long moment. He thought about the big empty house, the guest room that never had any guests, the loneliness he knew Emma felt. But he also thought about the complications, the responsibility, the work that already consumed all of his time. "It's complicated, Princess, but can we try?" Mark looked into Emma's pleading eyes. There was something different in them today, an urgency he had never seen before. For the first time in years, Mark didn't know what to say. And for the first time in years, that bothered him. Let's talk about this tomorrow, okay?" Emma nodded, hopeful. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. And as Mark went upstairs to his room, something inside him really began to change. The seed of an idea he had never considered before. The rain started to fall hard around 7 in the evening. Emma was at her bedroom window, watching the drops run down the glass, when a thought struck her like lightning. Chloe. Where was Chloe hiding from the rain? Emma ran down the stairs. Mark was in the living room, as always, but this time he wasn't on the phone. He was looking at some papers scattered on the table with a thoughtful expression. "Daddy?" Mark looked up. "What is it, Princess? It's raining really hard." "Yeah, it really is." Emma went to the living room window and pointed outside. "Chloe is out there in this rain." Mark followed Emma's gaze. The rain had turned into a storm. The wind was shaking the trees, and water was running down the streets like little rivers. Emma. "Daddy, we have to go get her." Mark frowned. "Go get her, now." "She has nowhere to hide. You said you'd think about her staying here. What if she gets sick?" Mark looked at Emma, then at the rain outside. He had spent the whole day thinking about their conversation from the night before. The image of Chloe sleeping in a dark alley wouldn't leave his mind. "Emma, there's a storm out there. That's why. She must be wet and cold." Emma grabbed her pink jacket from the hook near the door. "Please, Daddy, just to see if she's okay." Mark looked at his daughter. Emma had put on her jacket and was holding the car keys he always left on the entryway table. "Emma, you can't drive." "I know. You're going to drive," Mark sighed. He looked at the papers on the table, then at Emma standing by the door, waiting. For the second time in 2 days, Mark made a decision that surprised himself. Get an umbrella. And a towel, too. Emma smiled and ran to get the items. Mark put on a raincoat and grabbed the keys. In the car, the rain beat hard against the windshield. The wipers could barely keep up with the water. Mark drove slowly, paying attention to the slippery road. "Are you sure she's in that alley?" Mark asked. "She said that's where she stays when she has nowhere else to go." Mark parked near the restaurant where they had met. Outside, the streets were deserted. Anyone with any sense was at home, protected from the storm. "Stay here in the car," Mark said. "I'll go look for her." "No, I'm coming with you." "She might be scared if she only sees you." Mark hesitated, but Emma was already opening the car door. They walked to the alley together, sheltering under the umbrella. Water was running along the curbs, forming huge puddles. The wind was so strong they could barely walk straight. "Chloe!" Emma shouted. "Chloe, are you there?" At first they heard nothing but the sound of the rain. Then from the back of the alley a weak reply came. "Emma!" They ran towards the voice. Chloe was huddled under a piece of wet cardboard, trying to shield herself from the water running down the walls. Emma was shocked. Chloe was soaked, shivering with cold, and her lips were almost blue. "Chloe!" Emma ran to her and knelt on the wet ground. Mark arrived right behind her, holding the umbrella over them. "Are you okay?" Emma asked. Chloe could barely speak. She was shaking so much her teeth were chattering. I'm cold," she stammered. Emma immediately took off her pink jacket and put it on Chloe's shoulders. "Here, take this. It'll warm you up." Mark watched the scene in silence. Emma, without hesitation, had given her own jacket to protect her friend. His 5-year-old daughter was showing more compassion in 2 days than he had shown in years. "How long have you been out here in the rain?" Mark asked Chloe. "See, since it started, there was nowhere else to go." Mark looked around the alley. The water was rising. Cardboard boxes were floating in the gutter. It was dangerous and unsanitary. "You couldn't find a dry place?" Chloe shook her head. All the spots are taken by other people. They won't let me stay." Mark felt a tightness in his chest. A 5-year-old child, competing for space to shelter from the rain with homeless adults. "Daddy," Emma said, looking at him with pleading eyes, "we can't leave her here." Mark looked at Chloe again. She was clutching Emma's jacket as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Her eyes were scared, but also full of gratitude. "Chloe," Mark said, crouching down to her level, "do you have anywhere to go tonight?" Chloe shook her head. "Sant, no." Mark looked at Emma, then at the flooded alley, then back at Chloe. The girl was shaking so badly she could hardly sit up. For a moment, Mark thought of all the complications, social workers, paperwork, legal responsibilities. But then he looked into Chloe's scared, lost eyes, and into Emma's eyes full of hope. Some decisions are simple when you stop overcomplicating them. "She's coming with us," Mark said, extending his hand to Chloe. "This isn't safe." Emma's eyes widened. "Really, Daddy? Really?" Chloe looked at Mark's outstretched hand with suspicion. Where to? To our house, Emma said, taking Chloe's other hand. House at least until the rain stops. And after that? Mark hesitated for a second. We'll figure that out later, but you're not sleeping in the rain tonight. Chloe let them help her up. She was so weak she could barely walk. Mark carried her in his arms to the car, shielding her with the umbrella. In the back seat, Emma held Chloe's hand the whole way. Chloe had stopped shivering, but she was still wet and cold. It'll be fun having you at our house, Emma said. You can take a warm bath and wear my clothes. Will your clothes fit me? We're almost the same size. Mark watched them in the rearview mirror as he drove. Chloe seemed smaller and more fragile inside the car. How had a child survived on the street for so long? When they got home, Mark carried Chloe inside again. She was exhausted and almost asleep. Emma, go run a warm bath, Mark said, and pick out some clean clothes for her. Emma ran ahead, excited. Chloe was finally going to see her house. Mark placed Chloe on the living room sofa and covered her with a blanket. You're safe now, he said quietly. Chloe looked at him with her still frightened eyes. You're not going to send me away? Mark felt his chest tighten again. Not tonight. Tonight, you're staying here. And tomorrow? Mark didn't know what to say. He hadn't thought about tomorrow. He had acted on impulse, moved by the compassion Emma had awakened in him. And we'll talk tomorrow, but right now you need to get warm and rest. Emma came running back from the kitchen. The bath is ready, and I picked out my warmest pajamas. Chloe smiled for the first time since they found her. It was a small but real smile. Thank you, she whispered. Mark watched Emma help Chloe up the stairs. His daughter was beaming with happiness. She had finally managed to help her friend, and Mark, for the first time in years, had made a decision with his heart instead of his head. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside the house, two 5-year-old girls were discovering that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose. And a father was discovering that being present meant much more than just being physically in the same place. Mark woke up at 6 in the morning, as he always did. But this time, it wasn't the alarm clock that woke him. It was the sound of laughter coming from Emma's room. He got up and walked to his daughter's bedroom door. Through the crack, he saw Emma and Chloe sitting on the floor playing with dolls. Chloe was wearing Emma's pajamas, and her hair was clean and combed. And then the princess said, "I'm not going to marry you." Emma was narrating, using a funny voice. Chloe laughed loudly, covering her mouth with her hands. Why didn't she want to get married? Because she wanted to travel the world with her best friend. The two girls laughed together. Mark had never seen Emma so lively in the early morning. He went down to the kitchen and made coffee, but his mind was racing. What had he done last night? He brought a strange child home without thinking about the consequences. Mark picked up his phone and searched online. Social services, homeless child. Several numbers appeared on the screen. Mark hesitated for a moment, listening to the laughter coming from upstairs. But then he thought about the legal responsibility, the problems he could face for harboring a minor without authorization, the work he would miss if this got complicated. He dialed the first number. Department of Social Services, good morning? Good morning, I have a situation here. A child who was on the street spent the night at my house. I understand, sir. What is the child's age? 5 years old, a girl. And where are her guardians? She says she doesn't know. Apparently, she's been alone for some time. Mark heard the sound of typing on the other end of the line. Sir, we will send a social worker to your home to assess the situation. Can you give me your address? Mark provided the information, and the operator said someone would be there in 2 hours. He hung up the phone and stood in the kitchen, listening to the girls playing upstairs. A part of him wondered if he was doing the right thing. Emma ran down the stairs, with Chloe right behind her. Daddy, Chloe slept super well, and she liked my pajamas. Chloe hid slightly behind Emma, still shy around Mark. That's good, Mark said, trying to smile. Yeah, do you girls want pancakes? Pancakes? Emma shouted. Chloe, have you ever had pancakes? Chloe shook her head. Then you're going to love them. As Mark prepared breakfast, the girls sat at the table and continued to talk. Chloe told them about the dogs she saw on the street, and Emma talked about her school. You can go to my school too, Emma said excitedly. It'll be so cool. Mark felt a pang in his stomach. Emma was already making plans for the future, including Chloe. They ate in silence for a while. Chloe was impressed with the pancakes and ate slowly, savoring every bite. "Can I have more?" she asked shyly. "Of course," Emma said. "Daddy, make more pancakes for Chloe." Mark smiled and made 2 more pancakes. Chloe thanked him quietly. The doorbell rang at 10:30 in the morning. Mark's heart started to race. Emma ran to the window. "Who is it, Daddy?" "It must be someone from work," Mark lied. He opened the door. A middle-aged woman, wearing a blue blazer and carrying a folder, stood at the entrance. "Mr. Thompson?" "I'm Amanda Silver, from the Department of Social Services. Please, come in." Amanda came in and looked around the house. Emma and Chloe had stopped playing and were watching from the stairs. "Where is the child?" Amanda asked quietly. Mark pointed to the stairs. Amanda waved to the girls with a professional smile. "May I speak with you in private?" she asked Mark. They went to the kitchen. Amanda opened her folder and took out some papers. "You did the right thing by calling us, sir. Vulnerable children need specialized care." "What's going to happen to her?" "We're going to take her to a temporary shelter while we search for relatives or a suitable foster family." Mark glanced into the living room, where the girls were playing again. What if I wanted to keep her?" Amanda studied him for a moment. "Sir, the custody process is complex. There are psychological and financial evaluations, home visits. It can take months. And in the meantime, she stays at the shelter. It's the protocol." Mark nodded, even though he didn't like the answer. "I'll need to speak with the girl now," Amanda said. They went back to the living room. Amanda approached the girls carefully. "Hi, dears. Which one of you is Chloe?" Chloe hid behind Emma. "I'm Emma, and this is my best friend, Chloe." "That's nice." "Chloe, may I talk with you?" Chloe shook her head, grabbing onto Emma's arm. "It's all right," Amanda said softly. "I just want to know how you're doing." "She's doing fine," Emma answered for Chloe. "She slept here, took a bath, and ate pancakes." Amanda smiled. "That's wonderful. But now Chloe needs to come with me." Emma frowned. "Come with you?" "Where to?" "To a place where she'll be well taken care of. But she's already being well taken care of here." Mark stepped forward. "Emma, the lady is here to help Chloe." "Help how? She's fine here." Chloe finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Do I have to leave?" Amanda knelt to the girl's level. "Chloe, you're going to a safe place with other children. You'll have food, clean clothes, and a bed of your own. But I want to stay with Emma." "I know, dear. But sometimes things are complicated." Emma looked at her father with eyes full of confusion and anger. "Daddy, you said she could stay." "Emma, I said she could stay last night. Today is different." "Why?" Mark didn't know how to answer. How could he explain protocols and legal responsibilities to a 5-year-old? Because it's for the best." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then her expression changed. The anger was replaced by a deep sadness. "You lied to me." "Emma, I didn't lie. You said you'd think about it. You said she could stay. You lied." Amanda stood up. "Chloe, can you go get your things?" "What things?" Chloe asked. "I don't have any things." "The clothes you were wearing yesterday." Emma stood up quickly. "She can keep my pajamas, and my clothes, and my toys." "That's very kind, Emma. But Chloe will get new clothes at the shelter." "I don't want new clothes. I want to stay with Emma," Chloe said, starting to cry. Mark felt as if someone was squeezing his chest. Both girls were crying now, hugging each other as if it were the last time. "Mr. Thompson," Amanda said quietly, "it's best we do this quickly. The longer we take, the harder it gets." Mark nodded. He approached the girls. "Chloe, you need to go now." "No," Emma shouted. "She's not going." "Emma, stop making things difficult." Emma looked at her father with an expression he had never seen before. It was pure disappointment. "You took my friend away," she whispered. "The only one who saw me." Emma's words hit Mark like a punch to the gut. Amanda gently took Chloe's hand. "Let's go, dear. Emma can visit you at the shelter." "Promise?" Chloe asked, looking at Emma. Emma didn't answer. She had turned her back and gone up the stairs. Chloe was led away in silence. She turned one last time before leaving through the door, looking for Emma, but she wasn't there. Mark closed the door and stood in the entryway. The house was silent again. He went up the stairs and knocked on Emma's bedroom door. "Emma!" There was no answer. "Emma, can I come in?" Silence. Mark opened the door. Emma was lying on the bed, her back to him, hugging a pillow. "Princess, are you okay?" "Go away." "Emma, I know you're upset. Go away." Mark had never heard Emma shout like that. He stood at the door for a moment, then left and closed it behind him. The rest of the day passed in silence. Emma didn't come down for lunch. She didn't come down for dinner. Mark brought food to her room, but she didn't touch it. In the evening, Mark tried to talk to her again. "Emma, you need to eat something. I'm not hungry. Are you mad at me?" Emma finally turned to look at him. "You don't understand anything. Then explain it to me. Chloe was my friend, my only friend, and you took her away from me. Emma, I did what was right." "Right for who? For you, because it wasn't right for me." Mark sighed. "You'll understand when you're older. Everyone always says that. You'll understand when you're older. But I understand now. You don't want Chloe here because it's work, just like you don't want to pay attention to me because it's work." Mark was speechless. "It's not like that, Emma." "Yes, it is. You only talk to me when it's convenient. You only listen to me when you don't have anything more important to do." Emma turned her back to him again. "Chloe listened to me. Chloe liked my drawings. Chloe paid attention to me." Mark felt tears welling up in his eyes. "Emma, I do pay attention to you." "No, you don't. You never have." Mark left Emma's room and went down to the living room. He sat on the sofa and put his head in his hands. For the first time in years, Mark truly thought about his relationship with Emma. When was the last time he had stopped to listen to her? When was the last time he had really looked at one of her drawings? He reached for his phone to call the office but stopped. It was Saturday night. Why was he thinking about work? Mark went upstairs again and knocked on Emma's door. "Emma, can I come in?" No answer. Mark opened the door slowly. The bed was empty. "Emma?" He checked the bathroom, the closet, under the bed. Emma was nowhere to be found. Mark ran downstairs and searched the whole house. Living room, kitchen, laundry room, garage. Emma had disappeared. He opened the front door. It was dark outside, and a light drizzle was starting again. "Emma!" he shouted. No response. Mark grabbed the car keys and drove through the neighborhood streets. He stopped at every corner, shouting Emma's name. After 20 minutes of searching, he saw her. Emma was walking on the main sidewalk, still in her pajamas, wet from the drizzle. Mark stopped the car and ran to her. "Emma, what are you doing?" Emma turned to him. Her cheeks were wet, but Mark didn't know if it was from the rain or from tears. "I went to find Chloe," she said simply. "She should have been with us." Mark knelt on the wet sidewalk at Emma's level. "Emma, you scared me. I thought I'd lost you." "You already lost me, Daddy." "A long time ago." Mark felt as if he had been slapped. "I'm sorry," he said, and his voice was trembling. "I'll do better. I'll have time for you." Emma looked him in the eyes for a long moment. "Promise. I promise. For real. For real." Emma threw herself into her father's arms, and they hugged right there on the wet sidewalk, under the drizzle. "I want Chloe back," Emma whispered. "I know, I do too." "So are we going to get her?" Mark pulled Emma back a little to look into her eyes. "We're going to try. I promise we'll try." And for the first time in a long time, when Mark made a promise to Emma, he truly intended to keep it. Mark woke up on a Monday with a different feeling in his chest. It wasn't just the guilt he had carried all weekend, but a determination he hadn't felt in years. Emma had slept in his bed the night before, after the incident on the street. She was still there, curled up in the blanket, her hair spread across the pillow. "Emma," he said softly, "wake up, princess." Emma opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, she seemed confused. Then she remembered everything that had happened. "Daddy." "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" Emma sat up in bed. "I dreamed about Chloe. She was crying." Mark felt a pang in his chest. "Emma, I have an idea. How about we go visit Chloe today?" Emma's eyes lit up. Really? Can we? I can call the shelter and ask about visiting hours. Emma jumped out of bed and hugged her father. Thank you, Daddy. Mark called his office and said he wouldn't be coming in. For the first time in 5 years, he cancelled all his meetings for the day. After breakfast, they got in the car and drove to the address Amanda had left. The shelter was on the other side of town, in an area Mark had never visited. It was a 2-story building, painted a pale yellow with a small garden out front. It didn't look like a bad place, but it didn't look like a home either. Is this where Chloe is? Emma asked. It is. It looks sad. Mark looked at the building again. Emma was right. There was something too institutional about the place, something that didn't radiate the warmth of a home. They entered the reception area. A young woman was behind a counter, typing on a computer. Good morning. How can I help you? We're here to visit a child. Chloe. Mark realized he didn't know Chloe's last name. Find a 5-year-old girl who arrived here on Saturday. The receptionist checked the computer. Chloe Silver. Are you relatives? Mark hesitated. We're family friends. One moment. She picked up the phone and spoke quietly. After a few minutes, a middle-aged woman appeared. I'm Mrs. Rosa, the shelter coordinator. You're here to see Chloe? Yes. And your relationship to her is? Emma stepped forward. She's my best friend. She slept at our house. Mrs. Rosa looked at Mark with a questioning expression. It was an emergency situation, Mark explained. We found her in the rain and brought her home. The next day, social services came to get her. I see. Chloe has mentioned you a few times. Especially you, she said, looking at Emma. Is she okay? Emma asked. She's adjusting, but it's been a little difficult for her. Mrs. Rosa led them down a long hallway. The walls were decorated with children's drawings, but the place still had an institutional feel. So she's in the yard playing with the other children. They went out to an inner courtyard. There were about 15 children of various ages playing with simple toys. Mark looked for Chloe and saw her sitting alone in a corner, hugging an old doll. Chloe! Emma shouted. Chloe looked up quickly. When she saw Emma, her face completely lit up. She dropped the doll and ran towards them. Emma, Emma! The two girls met in the middle of the courtyard and hugged as if they hadn't seen each other in years, instead of just 2 days. I thought you'd forgotten me, Chloe said, still hugging Emma. How could I forget you? You're my best friend. Mark watched the scene from a distance. The joy on Chloe's face was so pure, so genuine, that he felt his chest tighten. She had only been at the shelter for 2 days, but she already seemed smaller, more lost, and he didn't look away. For the first time, Mark really saw Chloe, not as a problem to be solved or a responsibility to be avoided, but as a child who needed love just as much as Emma did. Guys, how are you? Emma asked, still holding Chloe's hands. I'm okay. The people here are nice, but it's not like your house. Of course it's not the same. Your home is with us. Auntie Rosa said you might not be able to come back. Emma looked at her father with determination. Daddy, tell her. Mark approached the girls. Chloe was still shy with him, but she didn't hide behind Emma like before. Hi, Chloe. How are you feeling? Hi, Mr. Mark. I'm okay. Do you like it here? Chloe looked around the courtyard. It's nice. There are other kids, and food every day, and a warm bed. But there's no Emma, and there's no you. Mark knelt to her level. Chloe, would you like to come back to our house? Chloe's eyes widened. Can I? I'm trying to work it out, but it might take a little while. How long? I don't know yet. Chloe nodded, trying not to show her disappointment. Mrs. Rosa approached. Girls, you have about 20 more minutes for your visit. Emma and Chloe ran off to play on the slide. Mark stood watching them with Mrs. Rosa. They have a special connection, the coordinator commented. They do. Emma's never had a friend like this. And Chloe's never had a family like this. Mark looked at her. What do you mean? Chloe talks about you all the time, about how Emma shared her food with her, how you took her out of the rain. For a child who spent her whole life being ignored, that means a lot. Mark watched Chloe push Emma on the swing. They were both laughing loudly, completely absorbed in their game. What's her story? Mark asked. Mother addicted to drugs, father unknown. She spent the last 2 years living with her grandmother, but the grandmother died 6 months ago. She's been on the street ever since. And relatives. We haven't found any. Mark was quiet and processing the information. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Rosa continued, may I speak frankly? Of course. Chloe is a special child. She's resilient, loving and intelligent, but she needs stability. Children her age who spend too long in shelters develop attachment issues. What does that mean? It means that if she doesn't find a family soon, it will become increasingly difficult for her to trust people and form bonds. Mark looked at Chloe again. She was helping Emma climb a small tree with the utmost care. And if I wanted to adopt her, Mrs. Rosa studied him for a moment. It's a long process. Evaluations, home visits, interviews. It can take 6 months to a year. And in the meantime, she would stay here. Mark felt something stir inside him. The idea of Chloe spending a year in a shelter, no matter how good it was, bothered him deeply. So is there no way to speed up the process? In special cases, yes, especially when the child already has an established bond with the family. The visiting time ended quickly. Emma and Chloe said their goodbyes with difficulty. Will you come back tomorrow? Chloe asked. I'll try, Emma replied, looking at her father. Every day. Every day, Mark said, surprising himself. In the car, Emma was quiet for the first few minutes. Mark looked in the rearview mirror and saw Chloe at the shelter window, waving until they were out of sight. Daddy? Yes. Chloe can't stay there. Why not? She doesn't belong there. She belongs with us. Mark drove in silence for a few blocks, thinking, Emma, if Chloe came to live with us, it would be forever. It wouldn't be just for a few nights. I know. That means she would be like a sister to you. You'd have to share your toys, your room sometimes, my attention. I want to share. Are you sure? I'm sure. Chloe makes me happy. And I think she makes you happy too. Mark thought about Emma's observation. It was true. In the few moments he had spent with Chloe, he had felt complete in a way he hadn't felt in years. What if it's really hard? It'll be fun. We can teach her everything. How to brush her teeth right, how to use a fork and knife, now how to ride a bike. Mark stopped the car at a red light. He turned to look at Emma in the back seat. Do you really want this? More than anything in the world? Mark thought about his life, the constant work, the silent house, the unkept promises to Emma, and he thought of Chloe, alone in a shelter, waiting for a family that might never come. When the light turned green, Mark didn't go straight. Instead, he made a U-turn. Daddy, where are we going? Back to get Chloe, Emma screamed with joy. Really? Really. But this time it's for real. If we do this, it's forever. I know. Thank you, Daddy. Mark drove back to the shelter with his heart pounding. He didn't know exactly what he was going to say or how he would convince Mrs. Rosa, but he knew he couldn't leave Chloe there. When they arrived, Mark went straight to the coordinator's office. Mr. Thompson, did you forget something? I want to start the adoption process for Chloe. Today, Mrs. Rosa smiled. May I ask what made you change your mind? Mark looked at Emma, who was holding his hand. My daughter taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about choosing to take care of someone. It will take time for all the paperwork to go through. In the meantime, can I take Chloe home? I can sign any liability waiver. Mrs. Rosa thought for a moment. In special cases, we can authorize temporary custody. I'll make a few calls. 2 hours later, they were leaving the shelter with Chloe. She was carrying a small bag with the few clothes she had been given. In the car, Mark adjusted the rearview mirror so he could see both girls in the back seat. Chloe, he said, if you want, you can stay with us. The doors of our home are open to you. Chloe looked at him with tear-filled eyes. Forever? Forever. Thank you, she said, her voice choked with emotion. Emma hugged her friend. Now we're going to be real sisters. Mark drove home with a smile on his face. For the first time in years, he didn't think about work, didn't answer the phone when it rang, and didn't worry about anything other than the two girls laughing in the back seat. The family he never knew he wanted was finally complete. Mark woke up on Saturday with a strange feeling. It wasn't anxiety or hurry, it was calm. For the first time in years, he hadn't scheduled any meetings, any important calls, any urgent projects. There was only him and his two girls. Emma and Chloe were still sleeping in Emma's room. Over the last few days, they had become inseparable. Chloe was adjusting to life in the house, and Emma was radiant to have a sister. Mark went down to the kitchen and did something he hadn't done in a long time. He prepared a special breakfast: heart-shaped pancakes, crispy bacon, fresh orange juice, and even some fruit cut into star shapes. He had fun cutting the apples and arranging everything on the plate as if it were a work of art. The smell of bacon brought the girls downstairs. They appeared at the kitchen entrance, still in their pajamas with messy hair, rubbing their eyes. "Wow," Emma said, stopping suddenly. "Is it someone's birthday?" "Nope," Mark smiled, placing the last pancake heart on the plate. "I just wanted to make something nice for my princesses." Chloe approached the table slowly, still impressed by the amount of food. "Tidy's all this for us?" "Of course. Sit down." They sat and began to eat. Chloe still had the habit of eating as if it were her last meal, but she was getting better every day. Mark noticed how she savored each bite and how Emma naturally shared her favorite fruits with her friend. "Daddy," Emma said between bites, "are you not going to work today?" "No. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit." "Why?" Mark put down his fork and looked at the two girls. Emma had a spot of jam at the corner of her mouth, and Chloe was holding her fork with both hands, still learning proper table manners. "Because today is our day." "Just ours." Emma's eyes widened. "Our day. That's right. No phone, no computer, no work. Just the three of us." Chloe stopped chewing and looked at him in surprise. "The whole day. The whole day." To prove he was serious, Mark took his cell phone from the table and right in front of the girls, turned it off completely. Then he put the device in a kitchen drawer. Emma almost choked on her juice. "Daddy, you turned off your phone." "I did." "But what if someone important calls?" Mark sat between the two girls and smiled. "Today, there's no one more important than you two." Chloe smiled shyly. She was still getting used to the idea of being important to someone. Emma clapped her hands excitedly. "So what are we going to do?" "I have a surprise," Mark said, getting up from the table. "How about a picnic?" "A real picnic?" Emma asked, jumping from her chair. "With a basket and everything?" "With a basket and everything." The next 2 hours flew by. Mark cut sandwiches into various shapes: triangles, squares, even some heart shapes to match the pancakes. He packed fruit, put cookies in a small bowl, filled bottles with juice, and even included some special sweets. Emma chose a checkered blanket to spread on the grass, and Chloe helped organize everything in the wicker basket Mark had found in the pantry. "Where are we going to have the picnic?" Chloe asked, carefully arranging the napkins. "At the big park downtown. It has a lake, a playground, and even a place to ride bikes." "Ride bikes?" Chloe stopped arranging the basket and looked worried. "I don't know how to ride a bike." "Then today you're going to learn," Mark said with a smile, gently ruffling her hair. "Really? Really? I'm going to teach you." They loaded the bikes into the car, Emma's and one that Mark had bought for Chloe the week before. It was pink with training wheels and a little basket on the front, exactly like the one Emma had used when she learned. The park was full of families enjoying the sunny Saturday. Children ran around the playground, couples walked around the lake, and the air was filled with the sound of laughter and cheerful conversation. Mark chose a perfect spot under a large tree, near the lake, but with a view of the playground. From there they could see everything: the ducks swimming, other families having picnics, the children playing. Emma and Chloe ran off to explore, while Mark spread out the blanket and arranged the food. He paused for a moment to watch them. Emma was teaching Chloe how to use the slide, showing her how to sit properly and holding her hand carefully. The two of them were laughing so hard that other children stopped to watch. "Mr. Mark!" Chloe shouted from the top of the slide. "Look how brave I am." "I see you. You are very brave." She slid down with her arms in the air, shouting with joy. Mark felt something warm in his chest. It was pride, the same pride he felt for Emma, but now for Chloe too. After playing on the playground for an hour, they sat on the blanket to eat. The girls told jokes they had learned at school. Most of them didn't make much sense, but they found them hilarious. Mark laughed so hard he almost choked on his sandwich. "Why don't birds use Facebook?" Emma asked, already laughing before she even gave the answer. "I don't know why." Mark feigned curiosity. "Because they already have Twitter." The two girls burst into laughter. Mark laughed along, not so much at the joke, but at their pure joy. "Now it's time for bikes," Emma announced after they finished eating. Mark helped Chloe put on her helmet and get on the pink bike. She held the handlebars tightly, clearly nervous. Her little hands were white from gripping so hard. "I'm going to hold on to you," Mark promised, placing a firm hand on the seat and the other on her back. "You won't fall, I promise." Chloe took a deep breath and started pedaling slowly. Mark ran alongside her, holding on tight, feeling her every move through the bike. "Am I doing it?" she asked him without taking her eyes off the path ahead. "You're doing great. Keep pedaling." Emma cycled beside them, shouting words of encouragement. "You can do it, Chloe. It's easier than it looks. I was scared at first too." After a few laps around the lake, Mark noticed that Chloe was pedaling with more confidence. He gradually reduced his support, first taking his hand off her back, then loosening his grip on the seat. Suddenly, Chloe was pedaling on her own. "I'm doing it!" she yelled, finally realizing Mark was no longer holding on. "I'm doing it by myself!" Mark stopped running and stood watching Chloe complete a full lap around the lake, with Emma cycling beside her, both shouting with joy. He had never felt so much satisfaction from a completed project, not even the biggest contracts he had closed at work. The two girls pedaled back towards him, radiant with happiness and pride. "Daddy, did you see? Chloe learned so fast," Emma said, braking beside him. "I did. I'm very proud of you both." "Thanks for teaching me, Mr. Mark," Chloe said, still holding the handlebars firmly. "Now I know how to ride a bike like the other kids." They spent the rest of the afternoon at the park. They played tag among the trees, fed the ducks at the lake with leftover bread from the picnic, and even threw a frisbee that Mark had bought at the park's snack bar. During a break to rest, Emma sat next to Mark on the blanket and naturally took his hand. "Daddy, this is the best day of my life." Mark looked at the small hand in his. It was so simple, yet it meant so much. He intertwined his fingers with hers. "Why? Because you're really here. Not just your body, but you're paying attention to us." Mark felt his eyes well up. A 5-year-old child had perfectly summarized what had taken him years to understand. "Mr. Mark," Chloe shouted from the swing, where she had gone after resting. "Can you push me? I want to go really high." Mark stood up, still holding Emma's hand, and went to the swing. He began to push Chloe gently. "Higher," she requested, laughing and throwing her head back. "I want to touch the clouds." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I trust you." Chloe's words struck Mark like a bolt of lightning. "I trust you." A child who had been abandoned by every adult in her life was saying she trusted him. He pushed the swing a little higher, and Chloe screamed with pure joy. Emma ran over and asked to be pushed on the swing next to her. Mark stood there, pushing the two girls alternately, listening to their laughter echo through the park. For the first time in years, Mark didn't think about work. He didn't think about deadlines, meetings, or projects. He didn't miss his phone or the constant rush that always accompanied him. He was completely present. When the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, they packed everything up and returned home. In the car, the girls dozed in the back seat, exhausted from playing so much. Chloe hugged a small teddy bear she had won at a park stall, and Emma held her friend's hand even while sleeping. Mark drove in silence, thinking about the day they had spent together. It was the first day he had dedicated himself completely to them, without distractions, without rush, without other priorities, and he realized how much he had been missing. All those years chasing things he thought were important, contracts, promotions, professional recognition, and he had missed what truly mattered. Emma's smiles, her attempts to show him drawings, her small daily achievements, and now Chloe too, her courage, her gratitude, her ability to trust even after everything she had been through. When they got home, Mark carried a sleeping Chloe in his arms, and Emma held onto his free hand, stumbling with sleepiness. As he climbed the stairs, he made a silent promise to himself. This would not be just one special day. It would be the first of many. It was the first day of a new life, where work would be important, but never more important than the two girls who had completely changed his world. And for the first time in years, Mark went to sleep feeling that he had done the most important thing of the day, been a real father. 3 months had passed since Chloe came to stay. 3 months of afternoons doing homework together, of family dinners where Chloe learned to use a fork and knife properly, of bedtime stories where Mark read to both girls curled up under the same blanket, and of a routine that felt like it had existed forever. The house had changed completely. Where there was once silence, laughter now echoed. The guest room had been transformed into Chloe's room, painted light yellow with stars on the ceiling, just like in Emma's room. Mark was in his office on a Tuesday morning when the phone rang. It was Amanda Silver from the Department of Social Services. "Mr. Thompson, I have good news. All the adoption documents have been approved. The papers are ready for you to sign." Mark felt his heart race. After months of home visits, interviews, and evaluations, the day had finally come. "Really? Already?" "Yes. The judge approved the case yesterday. If you can come in this afternoon, we can make everything official." Mark looked at the busy schedule on his computer screen. He had 3 important meetings scheduled: the New York project, with potential investors, and a conference call with clients. A few months ago, he would have asked to reschedule for another day, but not today. Never again. "I'll be there at 2 in the afternoon." Mark cancelled all his meetings and called the girls in school. The principal, Mrs. Martinez, answered personally. "I need to pick up Emma and Chloe early today. Chloe's adoption papers are finally ready." "Oh, what a special moment. I'll have them ready for you at 11:30. "Thank you." "Mr. Thompson, Chloe is a very special girl, and Emma has absolutely blossomed since her sister arrived." Mark smiled. It was true. Emma was happier, more confident, more mature. At the school, Emma and Chloe were in the playground when they saw Mark arrive. They ran towards him. "Daddy, why did you come to get us so early?" Emma asked. "I'm not sick," Chloe said quickly, looking worried. Mark knelt to their level. "You didn't do anything wrong, Princess. I have a very special surprise for you." "What kind of surprise?" Chloe asked. "Son, it's a surprise that will change our lives forever." "Is it a dog?" Emma asked. "It's better than a dog." In the car, the girls speculated about what it could be. Emma thought it was a new swimming pool. Chloe hoped it was a trip to see the ocean. "Daddy, at least give me a hint," Emma pleaded. "All right?" It's something Chloe has been waiting for a long time. Chloe sat quietly in the back seat. Is it about having a real family?" she asked softly. Mark looked at her in the rearview mirror and smiled. "It might be." Mark drove downtown and stopped in front of a government building. The girls looked out the window, confused. "Is the surprise in here?" Emma asked. "It is." They went up to the 3rd floor, where Amanda was waiting for them in a room with large windows and a polished wooden table. There was a neatly organized stack of documents. "Girls," Amanda smiled. "It's so good to see you." Chloe hid a little behind Mark. She still associated Amanda with the day she had been taken away from Emma. "Don't worry, Chloe," Amanda said gently. "Today is a very happy day. Today is the day you officially become part of the Thompson family." Chloe's eyes widened. "Today?" "Today." Mark sat at the table and Amanda began to explain each document. There were legal custody papers, name change documents, adoption certificates. "This one here," Amanda said, "is what officially changes her name to Chloe Thompson." "Chloe Thompson," Emma repeated. "I like it." Emma and Chloe watched in silence as Mark signed each document. Each signature made his heart beat faster. "Now," Amanda said, "I need your signature too, Chloe. Mine. You're 5 years old now. You're old enough to sign your own name." With her tongue sticking out in concentration, Chloe wrote, "Chloe Thompson." "Perfect," Amanda said, stamping everything with an official seal. She placed the papers in an official envelope and handed it to Mark. "Congratulations, Mr. Thompson. You now officially have 2 daughters." Mark took the envelope but turned to Chloe. "Chloe, come here." She approached, still shy. Mark knelt and held her small hands. "Remember when you came to our house and I said the doors were open for you?" Chloe nodded. "And remember when I said it was forever?" "I remember. But sometimes I thought you might change your mind." Mark's heart ached. "I never changed my mind, not for a second." He handed the envelope to Chloe. "Here you go. Now you're officially our daughter." Chloe held the envelope carefully, as if it were made of glass. "What does this mean?" "It means you have the same last name as us now. It means you're my real daughter, just like Emma. It means no one will ever take you away from us again. And it means," Emma added, "that we're sisters forever and ever." Chloe slowly opened the envelope. Her eyes scanned the documents. Seeing her name, Chloe Thompson, written several times, her eyes shone with tears of joy. I have a real family now." "You always did," Mark said, wiping a tear that ran down her cheek. "From the very first day. Now it's just official." Emma jumped from her chair and ran to Chloe. "Now it's forever," she shouted, hugging her sister. "You're my sister forever." The two hugged, crying and laughing at the same time. Mark felt his own eyes fill with tears. "In 20 years of doing this job," Amanda said, "I've never seen an adoption as beautiful as this one." On the way back, they stopped at an ice cream shop to celebrate. Chloe clutched the papers to her chest. "Daddy," she said, trying out the word officially. "Can I call you Daddy now?" "You could always call me Daddy, but now it's official." "Now it's official." She smiled and took a spoonful of chocolate ice cream. "Daddy, thank you for choosing me." Mark felt his chest tighten with emotion. "No, Chloe, thank you for choosing us too." That night, Mark helped the girls put the documents in a special frame. They hung it on the living room wall, next to the family photos. "Now everyone will know we're a real family," Emma said. "A chosen family," Chloe added. The next morning was Emma and Chloe's first official day as sisters at school. Mark prepared a special breakfast, heart-shaped pancakes and fresh juice. But when it was time to leave, Chloe stood at the door, nervously holding her backpack. "I'm scared," she confessed quietly. Emma stopped beside her. "Scared of what? What if the other kids ask about before? What if they say I'm not your real sister?" Emma thought for a moment. "You know what I'm going to tell them." "What?" "That real family isn't about who was born together. It's about who chooses to stay together." Chloe smiled a little. "Really?" "Really. And if anyone is mean, I'll tell them that you're my sister, and whoever messes with you has to mess with me too." Emma took Chloe's hand. "You don't have to be scared. I'm here. Sisters protect each other. Always." Mark watched the conversation, proud of them both. On the way to school, Emma told jokes to distract Chloe. In front of the school, Chloe hesitated again. "What if I can't be a good sister?" Emma looked at her seriously. "Chloe, you're already the best sister in the world. You share your toys with me, helped me with my homework, and taught me how to braid hair. Is that true?" "It's true. And now we have the same last name." The two girls got out of the car and walked to the school entrance. Mark watched them from a distance. Other children ran to greet them, and he saw how Emma included Chloe in every conversation. They went in together, side by side, and Mark felt proud of both of them. That afternoon, when they came home from school, the girls went straight to Emma's room. Mark was working when he heard laughter coming from upstairs. He went up and found them both lying on the floor, surrounded by colored pencils and sheets of paper. "Say, what are you two creating in there?" "It's a special drawing," Emma said. "Very special," Chloe added. "Can I see?" "It's not ready yet," they both said at the same time, then laughed. An hour later, they appeared in the living room, holding a large piece of paper. "Daddy, we're finished." They spread the drawing on the table. It was a colorful house with 3 figures in front: a tall man, a girl with straight hair, and another with curly hair. They were all holding hands, smiling, with a yellow sun in the sky. At the top of the drawing, written in colorful letters, was, "Now we are a family." Mark felt tears fill his eyes. "It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen. We made it together," Emma explained. "I drew the house and the sun, And Emma drew the people, Chloe added, and we wrote the sentence together, one letter each. Mark picked up the drawing carefully. Where do you want to hang it? On the living room wall, they both said at the same time. Next to the real papers, Chloe specified. Mark hung the drawing next to the frame with the adoption documents. The official papers and the childish drawing told the same story. They were a family. That night, after putting the girls to bed, Mark stayed in the living room for a while, looking at the wall. The government documents and the drawing complemented each other perfectly. They told the story of a family that wasn't born together but had chosen to stay together. A family created by love, compassion, and the courage of two little girls who taught a busy man what truly mattered. Mark picked up his phone to check emails but stopped. Instead, he turned off the living room light and went up to his room. For the first time in years, work could wait. His family was completely, officially, and in every way that truly mattered. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.